The FIA's brutal 10-second penalty has completely shattered Lewis Hamilton's Mexican Grand Prix, and the way it all unfolded has left fans, Ferrari, and the entire paddock in shock. What was shaping up to be one of his finest drives in red turned into a nightmare. The 7-time world champion saw his podium hopes crushed by a decision that nobody saw coming. And it all began on lap 15, with that explosive fight against Max Verstappen. A wheel-to-wheel duel that reignited one of Formula One's greatest rivalries, pure aggression, pure pride. Hamilton refused to yield. Verstappen lunged late on the brakes. The crowd held its breath as both men went side by side through the opening sequence of corners.
What followed? Absolute chaos.
Both went wide, both pushed the limits, but only one would pay the price. The onboard footage tells the story of a champion right on the edge. Hamilton swept around the outside at turn 4, his Ferrari dancing on the limit, a small lockup sending him beyond the white lines before rejoining just ahead of Verstappen. Moments later, the radio crackled, disbelief, confusion, anger. His engineer's voice cut through the noise. "Lewis, we've got a 10-second penalty for gaining an advantage off track."
The irony?
Verstappen had also run off moments earlier at turn 3. Yet somehow, he escaped completely unpunished. That decision didn't just cost Hamilton a top 5 finish. It obliterated Ferrari's momentum they had built all weekend long. You could hear the fury in Hamilton's voice as he shouted over team radio.
Unbelievable.
A single word loaded with disbelief, rage, and heartbreak. This penalty has reignited one of Formula One's fiercest rivalries, and reopened the eternal debate. What really counts as hard racing in modern F1? And did the FIA just go too far? Stick around till the end of the video, because we're breaking down the new evidence just revealed, the FIA's reasoning behind the call, and what this could mean for Hamilton's future with Ferrari. This isn't just another penalty story, this is the moment that could reshape the championship narrative. So, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to F1 Newsline, where we go beyond the headlines to uncover the truth behind Formula One's biggest controversies. Because in Mexico, one call changed everything. Their battles in 2021 were legendary, raw, tense, and unforgettable. And in Mexico, that rivalry was reignited with all the old fire. From the start, the tension was palpable. Hamilton defended cleanly through the opening laps, but on lap 8, Verstappen launched a ferocious dive into turn 1, braking impossibly late, forcing Hamilton wide. Both cars stormed through turns 2 and 3, side by side, barely inches apart. The roar of the Mexican crowd filled the circuit as they raced wheel-to-wheel down toward turn 4. And that's where everything fell apart. Hamilton, refusing to yield, tried to hold the outside line. Verstappen, carrying speed on the inside, squeezed him brutally, leaving almost no room to breathe. A puff of tire smoke, Verstappen locked up, ran wide, and kicked up a cloud of dust beyond the white line. For a split second, it looked like he'd lost control. But with incredible car handling, Hamilton kept the SF25 steady, rejoined the track, and emerged just ahead. It was heart-stopping, edge-of-your-seat racing, the kind of moment that reminds fans why they love Formula One. But the FIA saw it differently. Seconds later, a message flashed across the timing screens. Incident involving cars 16 and 44 under investigation. The race that had started with so much promise had suddenly taken a brutal turn. What made the decision even more controversial was what happened just before. Replays showed Verstappen also running wide through turn 3 to keep his momentum, clearly crossing the track limits. Yet somehow, the stewards chose to focus only on Hamilton's re-entry at turn 4. Their argument? Hamilton had gained a lasting advantage by rejoining ahead. Telemetry, they said, proved it. His delta time over Verstappen improved by just over half a second on the exit of turn 5. But for many observers, it felt like the FIA ignored the bigger picture. It was Verstappen's aggressive move that triggered the whole sequence, leaving Hamilton no realistic way to stay on track. Inside the Ferrari garage, disbelief spread like wildfire. Engineers stared at the monitors, rewinding the same footage again and again. Heads shook. Voices rose. "That's hard racing," one of them muttered under his breath. In a matter of seconds, the mood shifted from calm focus to utter shock. Over team radio, Hamilton's frustration spilled out instantly.
"He pushed me off.
What was I supposed to do?" His voice, a mix of anger and disbelief, cut through the static. Race engineer Ricardo Adami tried to steady him.
"Keep the pace, Lewis. Stay focused."
But the damage was already done. A 10-second penalty meant the podium was gone, long before the halfway mark. Up to that point, Hamilton's performance had been near perfection. The SF25 was alive in his hands. On the medium tires, his average laps were in the low 1:22s, matching Verstappen almost corner for corner. Ferrari's own data showed Hamilton had better traction through turns 11 and 12, and entered the stadium section nearly 3 km/h faster than the Red Bull. The balance was sublime, stable under braking, smooth on entry, and generating grip that had eluded Ferrari all season. He was under 2 seconds behind Verstappen and comfortably ahead of Behrman in fourth. Everything suggested that Hamilton was on the verge of his first Ferrari podium. And then, the Stewards' ruling dropped like a hammer. The explanation that followed only fueled the outrage. Race control claimed that new onboard footage and positional data confirmed Hamilton had gained time during the rejoin, and therefore, the penalty was justified. But minutes later, leaked data told a very different story. While Hamilton had gained a small margin when rejoining, the same evidence showed Verstappen had cut the previous corner and avoided losing time himself.
A double standard?
A selective call? Fans, analysts, even former drivers were left asking the same question. Was this justice or bias? Because in the heart of Mexico, one decision turned an instant classic into one of the most controversial races of the season. And as always, here on F1 Newsline, we dig into the truth behind the chaos. A crucial detail, conveniently overlooked in the FIA's official statement. Fans, pundits, and even rival engineers were quick to point out the inconsistency. Why wasn't Verstappen's maneuver investigated with the same intensity? Why did only one driver pay the price? From that moment on, Hamilton's race became one of damage limitation. But true to his nature, he refused to fold. Lap after lap, he pushed relentlessly, determined not to let frustration dictate his pace. Even with 10 seconds hanging over his head, his rhythm never broke. The lap times were razor-sharp, consistent, and relentless. Ferrari switched him to a two-stop strategy, giving him clean air to run his own race, to carve out a gap that might just offset the penalty. For a brief moment, it looked like the gamble might work. Hamilton's pace stayed within a tenth of Verstappen's, his sector times lighting up the screens. But Mexico is cruel. At over 2,000 meters above sea level, the thin air robs power, punishes drag, and makes overtaking a nightmare. And those 10 seconds, that invisible weight, proved impossible to overcome. When the checkered flag finally fell, Hamilton crossed the line in 8th place. A gut-wrenching result for a drive that deserved so much more. On the cool-down lap, there was silence. No radio chatter, no emotion, just the sound of an idling Ferrari cooling down under the Mexican sun.
Then came Hamilton's voice. Calm. Heavy.
I did everything right today. His engineer replied softly. You drove a great race, Lewis. There was nothing else to say. The penalty had turned what could have been Ferrari's best result of the season into another story of what might have been. After the race, Fred Vasseur didn't hold back. He defended his driver fiercely, telling reporters that Hamilton's move was a racing moment between two of the best in the world. He called the stewards' call too harsh, too mechanical, and completely out of context. Inside the paddock, the reactions were split. Some supported the FIA's strict interpretation of the rules. Others whispered that this decision carried the shadow of history. That maybe, just maybe, Hamilton's name brings more scrutiny than most. That his history with Verstappen still echoes in the minds of the stewards. Yet through all the noise, Hamilton handled the aftermath with remarkable composure. No explosive interviews, no public digs. Just quiet frustration and determination. He admitted that the duel had been on the limit, that it could have gone differently, but he also praised his team. The car's improving every weekend, he said, eyes fixed forward.
It was clear.
While the penalty had taken his result, it hadn't taken his confidence. Because what this race proved more than anything is that Hamilton's fight is far from over. Mexico may have robbed him of silverware, but it also revealed something far more dangerous. A Lewis Hamilton who is finally comfortable, confident, and ruthless inside the SF25. Ferrari now has the speed,
the consistency,
the composure it's been missing for years.
And Hamilton?
He has the hunger. The FIA's new evidence may have written the story of this race. But it's also poured fuel on the fire for what's coming next. One thing's for certain. The next time Hamilton and Verstappen go wheel to wheel, there will be no room for doubt. No half measures. And absolutely no mercy.